All right, so Erik, if you could just tell the audience a little bit about your background and what you do at Intuitive Surgical.
Okay, I'm Erik Holm. I've been kind of working in sales compensation for about 18 years now. As she said, I work for Intuitive Surgical, so it's a surgical robotics company, very cool kind of stuff. I've been there for probably about 9 months now. Manage a sales compensation team for the entire global sales organization. So we have US, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. So I have a couple analysts on my team, and we handle everything from administration of the system through calculating compensation, all accruals, forecasting and budgeting, and we do it all through Anaplan right now. So
awesome. So what other tools have you used across your career?
So I've used a little bit of everything. So all the way back from those infamous Excel models that everybody talks about and loves the flexibility of it. I've used Exactly, I've used Vericent, I've used Calidus, different systems that were programmed in-house in SQL, Access database, a little bit of everything. So coming to Intuitive was actually the first time that I heard Anaplan was a player in the sales compensation space. And what I liked about it when I saw it was the incredible flexibility of the system. I know that's one of the things that really attracted Intuitive Surgical to the system in the first place. But the fact that you can take all these complex calculations and use a planning tool and then also have the flexibility for the design of the dashboards, which I thought was fantastic when I first saw it. So we have the analysts on our team that are using the system. We've kind of built the system and built the dashboards that the admins use, almost like an operational manual. So everything is very chronological with the steps that you go through to handle our compensation cycle every month.
Awesome. So let's dig into some of that complexity. So tell me a little bit about your sales team. It's a global sales team. How many folks do we have? What kind of roles?
Yeah, so we have about 1,000, getting close to 1,000 people that we handle. Everyone from VP of sales, some executive, all the way down through sales directors, managers, sales reps, specialty overlay, trainees, people that are just getting stipends for going through training, everything, and then all the plans that encompass that. And then we have plans in the US, plans in Europe, and plans in Asia that are all a little bit different then as well. So
yep.
A lot of different slices of it.
A lot of different slices. I've seen it a little bit. But then let's dig into how complex they feel their plans are. So when one of your reps receives their plan, what kind of thoughts go through their head? What kind of complexity are we dealing with here?
And I have to be careful when I say this because my boss is in the room. But honestly, I think from and I kid about that, but from an overall complexity standpoint, I think they. A lot of the questions I get, they do kind of understand how they're paid. I mean, we've done a pretty good job of keeping it simple as far as kind of the main drivers that drive our business. We're selling systems. Obviously, you want to pay on revenue on that, and then you're also wanting to drive utilization of what we're doing. We want surgeons to be using our robots for handling surgery, making patient outcomes better, things of that nature. So. We have, I think, kind of taken, there's a couple steps. I mean, we're in a kind of a changing market right now. We're the only big player in this space. We do have some competition coming down the road. So we're trying a couple different things this year. And I know the gentleman this morning was talking about complexity of plans and how you're always changing. So we've kind of done that a little bit this year. I think we've kind of gone past his guideline of having 3 levers as far as that goes, which is usually something I'm kind of used to seeing. But I've seen companies use all the way up to 14 different ways of trying to pay somebody their compensation. So, for me, it's always a kind of a simplicity thing. And I think our teams get that for the most part. I do get some interesting questions, but for the most part, I think they pretty much see that and very clear on timing and things of that nature. So.
Okay, good. So how long has Intuitive Surgical been using Anaplan?
So it was a little bit before my time. So I came in July, but not too far. So kind of early 2015, I think, is when the engagement started. We actually use it for territory and quota planning as well. So that's kind of where we started. And a lot of that obviously drives what happens with sales compensation. So we were looking at the system that we were using, and it didn't provide a lot of the flexibility we wanted. which then drove people not using the system, which is something that we've been measuring lately. Not using the system, not understanding what they're reading, and going from that nature, and then not being able to handle some of the calculations that we wanted to move towards. So, being that we had Anaplan in place for T&Q, we decided to move into the incentive comp management. So I think that started sometime late 2015, and then we've been live with it since April of 2016. So since then, we've been running solely on Anaplan.
Awesome. Was there any thought into why you started with T&Q and then went into the comp area versus a different direction?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, we did have a tool in place for compensation. So, they had been using Exactly for many years. So that tool was already in place. Talking with the T&Q guy that we have in his team, and I have to give them a lot of credit for even being able to handle it before Anaplan. But now I think they have some better tools in place. But it was a lot of large spreadsheets, getting spreadsheets from directors. When you send a spreadsheet out to somebody in sales management, and hopefully I won't offend anybody in the room if you are, but you don't necessarily get it back in the same format you send it to them in. So, we had a system in place. They needed something to really help them out in that regard. So we moved into that first, got through the implementation of that before then we started the incentive comp one.
Okay, awesome. So you talk a little bit about spreadsheets kind of flying across the company, seen several examples of that within companies that I've worked with. So what was life like, at Intuitive Surgical before Anaplan came around?
So we had the system in place before, and like I said, and knowing exactly in the platform, a lot of the reporting that comes out of it is very out of the box. So that was what was in place. It didn't provide a lot of good visibility into how they were being paid from a detail level. And then also with a lot of those other systems, which is kind of one of the main selling points of why we went on to Anaplan in the first place is, Verisend or some of the others, when you're working in those, it's you go through the month, you close the month, then you spend the next few days trying to cram all this data into it and then get a calculation for payouts. Well, that works great. You don't have a lot of visibility as the month is building, so you end up with having to build in a pretty good sized window for the sales organization to go out and look. Now the month is finally closed. They can go see the results that are out there, and then they start digging through it. You got to give them time to kind of look at it before they start asking questions. So the good thing about the way we have Anaplan set up is we have a daily feed that's coming in. All of our main data is integrated with the system. Everything is flowing in on a daily basis, and then through the snapshot process that we run, they can actually see the months as they're building through comp. So they're seeing it with a day delay, but as the quarter's building up, they can see all their results that are flowing in. And get an idea of kind of where their compensation is going to end up instead of having to wait until the end, and then everybody's being reactive, and you don't have the ability to be proactive and look at when issues may be coming in a little earlier. So
it sounds like the impact to the reps has been pretty monumental, really bringing it forward, enabling them to be proactive. What kind of feedback have you gotten from the sales force?
And I don't know if some of it's a little residual or not, but because I didn't see metrics on how usage was before we started using this. We actually request usage data from Anaplan support on a monthly basis. So, and we've kind of started building a little bit of trending for that to monitor kind of how people are, if they're actually going in and using the system as the quarter's going on and as the month's going on, versus are they just going in at the end of the quarter to see, all right, what was the dollar amount that I end up getting paid? So, I actually just put together a lot of this data a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty well spread across, but we still have a good bit of ways that we can go, I think, for driving utilization. We're putting new training in place for them so they can understand that things are out there ahead of time, and really trying to drive that one up. So we've kind of seen a gradual incline as we've been going up quarter to quarter since I've been there, but we're hoping that with this year and some of the new compensation elements that we're putting in place that we can drive that up even farther.
Great. And what are some of the impacts for your team working in Anaplan versus another tool?
Yeah, well, so as I mentioned, with the flexibility of all the dashboards, What's nice about it is that we've built it in such a way that literally everything from starting some of the first data integration steps that are coming in versus all the steps that we have to go through with people who are on leave, new part lists, things of that nature. We've built it chronologically in a couple of admin dashboards that we go down the steps and get everything that we need that isn't built through a data integration with the system, get all those things completed, and then check them off as we go. I mean, it's flexible enough where we even built a checklist into one of the main dashboards that says, oh yes, this person went and did that step and signs off on it and then moves on to the next one. So for my group, and especially for me, because I haven't gone through the Anaplan training, I mean, I pick up systems pretty quickly. It was a blessing for me when I was coming in, because I could see literally every step that we go through to get prepped for a month or a quarter and what we have to get done in order to get people paid correctly. So
awesome. And then at that kind of more executive level, Intuitive Surgical now having Anaplan, where are you going with the tool? What kind of success are you looking for in using Anaplan on longer term?
I know there's some meetings going on for that. I don't know. I think we're looking at some of the compensation modeling that we were talking about before. The ability to have all of these systems connected together and being able to push them across, and like we were talking about, or they were talking about earlier, the ALM, being able to have your dev and your production environment and being able to sync them across and trying to do that on a broader scale. I think we're looking at where can we benefit from tying some of the other processes that we're doing into kind of this overall umbrella of Anaplan. So.
Awesome. And then we recently went through an implementation together just to kind of revamp the plans for 2017. Can you talk a little bit about implementing with our customer success team and how that went, and some of the best practices that you came across kind of using that agile approach?
Yeah, so we go about it a little bit differently. So we started with a third party to help us with the original implementation we're doing, and then we decided to work with Anaplan directly. And I think it went really well. I like the fact that the tool is flexible enough where we actually built that project management a model in there. So having very similar agile sprints that we have at our company, everything kind of played together very well. We were able to get a lot of what we were doing in place pretty quickly. But I know having that ALM functionality would have been nice, I think, as we were going along, because we did kind of find some old data that was still out there in our test environment when we moved it over. So, but overall, yeah, I mean, it went remarkably well. I mean, we didn't get our plans very early in the process for moving into the new year. I actually think some people still owe me some stuff for 2017. So we're still working on that, but we've been able to get a lot of those in place because of how easy the tool is to work with pretty quickly. So.
Awesome. All right. Does anyone else in the audience have any questions for Erik? We'd like to open it up.
Yeah. Let's see. So, and I don't know how much work was done ahead of time, and I wasn't there, so maybe you might want to answer this one. But if I understand correctly, we kind of started in November of 2015, really pushing towards getting the model in place for comp, and we were live on it in April of 2016. So I would say that's a pretty quick turnaround from other systems I've seen in the past. And we ended up doing a compensation in Excel sheets in the middle of that instead of trying to use the old tool to handle some of the new calculations. So doing that on top of getting this new system in place was a fairly quick turnaround, I think.
Yep. Go for it.
So it sounds like you're doing actual commission calculations in the tool.
Yep.
Forecasting as well.
Yep.
And dashboard reporting. So that's great. What's your process for actually getting the quota credits into connection?
So it's a good question. So we're actually feeding in all of that data. So the work that's done in T&Q, all the procedures on our system, so a lot of that's fed nightly from Salesforce. Our revenue is fed in, I think, daily also from SAP. So all the work that's done in those areas and closing the books and all that, those bigger pieces are actually fed in. And then the parts that we're handling manually, well, I say manually, but through our steps in Anaplan or any, we're pulling in most of our HR information also. So the hierarchy's coming in, so all the security is already set up for us. Who manages whom and who can see whom, everything like that is actually fed in. But we handle then the smaller parts. We've actually built views into our dashboards that say, all right, anyone that's, if we see a role change this month, deactivating the old one and starting the new one. So a lot of the smaller pieces we're handling, but everything else we're having fed in on a daily basis.
Can you elaborate more on your team, how it's changed in terms of moving from supporting exact to supporting chemicals? You need the different skill set
That one's going to be a little bit of a challenging question because, and thankfully I wasn't around for this one either, but they had decided to change systems and teams at the same time. So reason for that is they decided to relocate the whole function to, I'm from Atlanta, so to be closer to the sales ops group. They handle most of the actual plan design. We kind of work in a consulting fashion for that, but just having a little bit of history with it, I think the skill sets are pretty similar between Exactly and Anaplan. I think the logic in Anaplan is a lot more Excel, kind of, I don't want to call it friendly, but very similar. So maybe that makes it a little bit easier to learn. But the fact that you can, for us, you can build something that actually has the steps so somebody can learn it pretty quickly was a benefit. So.
Yeah.
You touched on accruals at the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm just curious on how you use Anaplan for that, and if you do any particular commission forecasting and modeling.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So our closing is remarkably fast for any place that I've ever worked before. So we actually, because we're feeding everything in daily, we have a pretty close snapshot of where we're going to end up as far as final compensation goes, and obviously we pay a month in arrears, but day one, we have all of our results in the system. Everything's already calculated because it's been building over the course of the quarter. So we're able to actually submit our accruals in that first couple days of the month and have that done. So as far as forecasting, I'm getting a little bit more involved in that now, so I don't have too much good implement on that one. But similarly, a lot of taking the historical data and working it through that way is kind of what we've been doing. So. Well, we still, we have, so we have kind of two models to work for our ICM. We have the calculator, and then we push it over to another model that gives us our payroll reports and also pushes the statements out to the field, which was another big selling point for us, was the fact that, Anaplan could be directly integrated with Salesforce. So the entire Salesforce, they get their statements out there in the same place that they're working for everything else. So we still do handoffs for files, so we actually generate the payroll report. We do all of our analytics on it and checks and make sure that everything is working correctly, but then we're still emailing it across to our payroll teams. I've worked with a lot of auditing and things of that in the past as well. They always like to actually see that handoff, even though it seems like it'd be better to have it automated in some fashion, but for whatever reason, when you come to that one, they don't like seeing that one person, a group calculates it, and they feed it through, and it automatically goes and pays somebody. So they always want to have somebody on a receiving end that is checking, for make sure you don't have an inflated payment out there for somebody. So we still handle it that way. We're sending payroll files to our U.S. payroll team, to Europe and Asia. So we're still doing that part through email. No, we've actually built those. Well, you could probably, if you want. You look like you were going to go for it.
So typically, I might have built it. We're good. So we have typically ADP or any of those will have kind of that pre-formatted report that you're looking for. So we've built that same format in their model. So it's a pretty simple export and ascend.
Yeah, so the format for each group is different. So we actually have 3 reports built that we, once we've gone through all of our checks, push the button, report comes out in that format, and we just send it off without anyone manipulating it.
So you said you integrated with your HR data. Did you have any challenges with EMEA labor data laws and things like that you had to take into consideration?
I think that probably fed into the T's and C's a little bit. I know we recently just built something to automate plan distribution and then track approvals and all that systematically. That in certain countries over there we couldn't do. So there's a little bit on that. But no, I mean, as far as payroll reports and pushing them their statements, no, I don't think we've had anything that we've run into as far as a roadblock there.
We got another one over there in the corner.
Hi. So by providing proactive visibility to your field sales force, have you measured and seen any change in sales performance?
That's a good question. Well, I don't know. For me at least, I can speak on the system usage side of things. I don't know. I mean, our sales have been pretty good from a corporate level anyway. So I can say with some of what we've put in place as far as our procedures and utilization of the systems, we have seen that going up over time. So that's good. But then as far as using the system, I'm seeing more now that I've been kind of looking at the data a little bit more from their support group, seeing that there are people that are going in there every month, even though they're not going to get paid until the end of the quarter, they're still going and looking at how they're kind of tracking in month 1 and month 2. So from an adoption standpoint, I think it's been working really well across the course of a quarter. So what I need to really push on is the people that need to be checking their final statements. I've still got a little bit of a gap there that I think we're working on this year. So.
Awesome. Last question. Rowan, I'll let you pick them.
2. How do you handle retroactive?
Unacceptable.
How do you handle retroactive adjustments, and also how do you handle inquiries?
So inquiries, we've kind of built that because we can have everything kind of done so quickly in the month. We've actually built that kind of a week-long window in there for them to look. So any adjustments that we're actually doing, we're still getting in to the same timing as if it was right in the first place. Fortunately, we found we haven't had a lot of calculation issues. It's more of when you're in compensation, you're always at the bottom of the data waterfall. So if somebody screwed something up way up here, a lot of times people don't find it until it actually hits their paycheck. So because of the fact that we can get everything kind of built over the course of the quarter, and they can see where they are procedure-wise in our case, if they see something that doesn't look quite right or does not is out of their expectations, they're asking questions first. So we usually get those addressed in time for our normal pay cycle and don't have to worry about having too many adjustments into the past. So that said, if somebody doesn't come and ask a question in the timely fashion or asks a month down the road, we close our periods in Anaplan, which I'm sure everybody does. So we'll handle those adjustments, through we kind of have a manual adjustment log track that we do, and then those are all uploaded at one time and then fed through Anaplan that way. So they'll see on their statement they'll just have a line that has monthly adjustment, and we kind of handle it that way.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I'm sure Erik would be willing to talk to you some more afterwards if you'd like and connect. But I think there's a break right now, Rowan.
We have a 15-minute break and we will be restarting at 3:45.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Erik.
Thanks.